study of individual unit? Yes, one of the important, or I would say foremost feature of microeconomics is it is a study of individual units. So it is a study of individual level or individual unit of an economic variable. I'll explain this in a little greater detail. See, what does micro means? A very small, a millionth part of a bigger unit. So when we look at the economic variable as such, so it's microeconomic variable reaches to the individual level. So when we study microeconomics, we go to the very individualistic level of a bigger economic variable. I will give you an example. When we study microeconomics, we study individual consumer. We study individual firm. We study individual household. We study individual demand, individual supply, individual industry. So what happens in microeconomics? For those bigger macro level variables, macro level economic variables, we in microeconomics studies them at a very micro level, individual level. And hence we study in microeconomics the individual unit. It is a study of individual units of a bigger economic variable. So in microeconomics, what happens is, let's say if you're studying the overall population, then it will not come under microeconomics. In microeconomics, we'll be studying individual buyer. In microeconomics, we will be studying individual demand or individual household demand. In overall economy, or I would say macro level, we will be studying the aggregate demand. So if you notice, from the aggregate demand, we are studying at an individual level. We'll try to see the total supply or aggregate supply, and in microeconomics, we'll see individual supply. Similarly, in a bigger economic picture, we try to understand all the industries in one go, industrial total production. Here, we will be studying individual firm, individual industry. So, with this example, what we understand in microeconomics, it is very crystal clear that we go to the very micro level, very small level, and we try to study those individualistic characteristic of economic variable. So in microeconomics, we study individual behavior, individual buyer, individual consumer, individual demand, individual supply, individual household, individual firm, individual industry. In fact, we also study the price of individual good. So let us understand now what we understand out of this is in microeconomics, we go to the individual unit of economic variable. I'll explain this with further crystal clear examples. In product pricing, we try to study the price of an individual product and not the price of overall economy. So what do we understand? That in microeconomics, we go to the individual pricing of the product, not overall economy, what we study in inflation and deflation, or rather in macroeconomics. Another example to explain this, that in microeconomics we study individual units is, let us say, for a buyer side, we'll try to understand the individual person's demand or individual household's demand, not the aggregate demand. On a seller side, we'll try to understand individual firm, individual industry, not the overall economic industries as such. Here I'll take a minute and I'll explain you the difference between firm and an industry. A firm is a company which produces a particular product, whereas an industry is a group of companies which produces the same type of product. I'll give an example. It is an example of, let's say, automobile industry. So in automobile industry, there are different companies, but they are producing the same type of product. Just like Bajaj, Honda, TVS. So there is a difference between individual firm and individual industry. In a nutshell summary, what do we understand? That microeconomics, one of the important and the foremost feature is study of individual units of a bigger economic variable. So here we study individual consumer, individual household, individual buyer, individual supplier, individual industry, individual firm, price of an individual product, and the list goes on. So in microeconomics, we go to that small level, individual level of an economic variable.